Ladies and gentlemen, this is an article that came out in GQ.com. And they are coming out and saying a lot of things that people probably don't want to hear. But I think it's something that will bring everything to reality. Since this earth has been here, there's always been a natural extinction going on the planet. It's always happened. And what we are seeing now, ladies and gentlemen, with all of these declining birth rates in the West and in the Eastern Asian countries is another natural instinct that's occurring on the earth. And even many of the scientists have conceded that once you get past a certain point when low birth rate hits, there is no turning it around. It has never occurred even once on this earth. Now, we know a lot of the women are not reproducing, but ladies and gentlemen, many of these men can't reproduce any good, productive sperm. They are not producing the same level of sperm even their grandfathers produced on the planet. Now, this is not all men. This is not all men at all. Okay, the only countries that are mentioned for this very low sperm count that's going on is the US, Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. So it's not every nation. But it's something that seriously needs to be discussed. If you're not reproducing, then there's no next generation. And if there's no next generation, then that means extinction. And these things got to occur, ladies and gentlemen, because number one, the planet is heating up a lot. And those that cannot handle the sun and handle the hot climate and move along with the planet, get in sync with the planet heating up, you're out of here. You're out of here. This planet ain't cooling down. It is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And we already know there are people on this planet, your skin is just not equipped for the baking sun. So this article really gets into that. And if there's not enough sperm and not enough women that are fertile, then there's only one direction you're going in. All right. So let's get into this. Now, they are talking about a study that they have been working on for a few decades. And get this, it's the Hebrew University in Mount Sinai. Do you think that's a coincidence? I sure don't. Medical school published a study showing that sperm counts in the US, Europe, Australia, and New Zealand have fallen by more than 50% over the last 4 decades. So you're talking about 40 years of steady decline in sperm count in men. That is to say, we are producing half the sperm our grandfathers did. We are half as fertile. The Hebrew University in Mount Sinai paper was a meta-analysis by a team of epidemiologists, clinicians, and researchers that culled data from 185 studies, which examined semen from almost 43,000 men. It showed that the human race is apparently on a trend line towards becoming unable to reproduce itself. Sperm count went from 99 million sperm per milliliter of semen in 1973 to 47 million per milliliter in 2011, and the decline has been accelerating. Would 40 more years or fewer bring us all the way to zero? Wow. I called Shanna H. Swan, a reproductive epidemiologist at Mount Sinai, and one of the lead authors of the study asked if there was any good news hiding behind those brutal numbers. We were already at risk of extinction. She failed to comfort me. The what does it mean question means extrapolating beyond your data, Swan said, which is already a tricky thing. But you ask. So this is what she is saying. When is a species in danger? When is a species threatened? And we are definitely on that path. The path in its darkest reaches lead to no more naturally conceived babies and potentially to no babies at all. So she is saying we're already seeing people from these nations that we mentioned having fewer babies, but it's going to get to the point where there will be no babies at all coming from these people in Europe, the US, Australia, and New Zealand. It's going to get that bad. There will be no babies at all coming from them. The final generation of Homo sapiens will roam the earth knowing they will be the last of their kind. And she's saying that's what it's going to come down to. You're already seeing this in effect right now, ladies and gentlemen. It's already in full effect. If we are half as fertile as the generation before us, why haven't we noticed? So she's saying, why haven't we noticed this up until now? One answer is that there is a lot of redundancy built into reproduction. We don't need 200 million sperm to fertilize an egg, but that's how many the average man might devote to the job. Most men can still conceive a child naturally with a depressed sperm count, but those who can't have a booming fertility treatment industry ready to help them. And though lower sperm counts probably have led to a small decrease in the number of children being conceived, that decline has been masked by sociological changes driving birth rates down even faster. People in developed worlds are choosing to have fewer kids, and they are having them later. They are not doing this by choice, ladies and gentlemen. See, they like to say that a lot. These folks are not barren by choice. They're not. They know they got a problem. And they know there is no humanly possible way they're going to fix this problem. And you know why they're not going to fix it, ladies and gentlemen? Because it's a natural extinction going on this earth. And I believe this is the same thing that happened to the Neanderthals. They got to the point where they just stopped reproducing and they just faded away. And we're seeing the cycle happen again. And everybody is afraid to say the word extinction, but that's what's happening on the planet. Okay. The problem has been debated among fertility sciences for decades now. Studies suggest that sperm counts are declining, have been appearing since the 1970s. But until Swan and her colleagues um, meta-analysis, the results have always been judged incomplete or preliminary. Swan herself had conducted smaller studies on declining sperm counts, but in 2015, she decided it was time for a definitive answer. She teamed up with Haggai Levine and Israeli epidemiologist and Niels Jurgensen, a Danish endocrinologist. And along with 5 others, they set about performing a systematic review and meta regression analysis. This is a kind of statistical synthesis of the data. Haggai is a very good scientist, and he also used to be head of epidemiology for the Israeli armed forces. Oh, that's debatable there. Swan told me. So he's very good at organizing. They spent a year working with the data. We should hope for the best and prepare for the worst, said Haggai Levine, a lead author of the study. And that is the possibility that we will become extinct. Ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what's happening. That's just, this earth is going to be too hot for certain people to survive on it. And that's what's happening. And it's going to continue to do it. The results, when they came in, were clear. Not only were sperm counts per milliliter of semen down by more than 50% since 1973, but the total sperm count were down by almost 60%. We are producing less semen, and that semen has fewer sperm cells in it. This time around, even scientists who had been skeptical of past analysis had to admit that the study was all but unassailable. Jurgensen of Copenhagen told me that when he saw the results, he said aloud, "No, it cannot be true." He had expected to see a past decline and then a leveling off. But he couldn't argue when the team ran the numbers again and again. The downward slope was unwavering. Almost all scientists I talked to stressed that not only were low sperm counts alarming for what they said about the reproductive future of the species, they were also a warning of a much larger set of health problems facing men. In this view, sperm production is a canary in the coal mine of male bodies. We know, for instance, that men with poor semen quality have a higher mortality rate and are more likely to have diabetes, cancer, and cardiovascular disease than fertile men. Testosterone levels have also dropped. Okay, so they're saying that this dropped dramatically, especially as the man extended into his adulthood. They saw a major drop in testosterone levels. One of the most significant markers of an organism's sex is something called anogenital distance, AGD, a measurement between the anus and the genitals. Male AGD is typically twice the length of female, a much more dramatic difference than height or weight. Okay, all right, let me just go. Lower testosterone leads to a shorter AGD. A measurement lower than the median correlates to a man being 7 times as likely to be subfertile and gives him a greater likelihood of having undescended testicles, testicular tumors, and a smaller penis. What you are seeing in a number of systems, other developmental systems, is that the sex differences are shrinking. Swan told me men are producing less sperm. They are also becoming less male. Oh my God. Oh, shh. Actually, that explains a lot about the behavior that we're seeing. So, as these men's bodies are producing less sperm, they are also becoming less male. Woo! Man, y'all going through some changes. I assumed that the next thing Swan was going to tell me was that these changes were all a mystery to scientists. If only we could figure out what was causing the drop in sperm count, I imagine we could solve all the attendant health problems at once. But it turns out it's not a mystery. We know what the culprit is, and it is hiding in plain sight. Wow. I can't get over what they're saying, that men that are producing less sperm are also less male. That is deep. Sixth floor. Okay, so let's go down. Okay, babies are all on. Okay, they're just talking about the babies on the floor. And let me just go down a little. And just sorry about this, y'all. I'm just trying to, because they're just talking about office and all that stuff. Okay, here in Denmark, there is an epidemic of infertility, he said. More than 20% of Danish men do not father children. That's pretty significant. When you start getting in double digits, that's pretty significant. Okay. So this man, who I don't even know how to pronounce his name, he is saying that something went wrong in the 70s. So it was something that went wrong in the 70s that they never caught at that point in time. All right. So when he was treated for infertility, from abnormalities in the cells of the testes that he had never seen before, when he treated a second man with the same abnormalities, and a few years later, he began to investigate a connection. He found was what he found was a new form of precursor cells for testicular cancer, a once rare disease whose incidence had doubled. Moreover, these precursor cells had began developing before the patient was even born. Oh, wow. He had the insight that testicular cancer, which is a cancer of young men, is something that is actually originated in utero. Swan told me if these testes had somehow been misdeveloping in utero, what else was happening to these babies before they were born? So he is saying their problem happened before even birth. So, ladies and gentlemen, these men that are walking around with low sperm count, actually, this happened during development. Interesting. Okay, so he is saying that these previously rare symptoms for a condition he called testicular digenesis syndrome, TDS, a collection of male reproductive problems that include an abnormal location for the end urethra and undescended testicles, poor semen quality, and testicular cancer. So this disorder have a common fetal origin, a disruption in the development of the male fetus in the womb. You know what this reminds me of, y'all? When in the Bible, when it tells you that Esau's seed was spoiled in the womb. Doesn't it kind of remind you of that? It reminds me of that. You don't have to listen to me about that, but let me move on. So, what's causing this disruption? To say there is only a single answer might be an oversight. Stress, smoking, and obesity, for example, all depress sperm counts. But there are fewer and fewer critics of the following theory. The Industrial Revolution happened and the oil industry happened. In the 20th century, chemistry happened. In short, humans started ingesting a whole host of compounds that affected our hormones, including most crucial estrogen and testosterone. So, mean sperm count and global plastic production since the 1970s. Wow. Wow. Things are changing fast. Scientists I talked to were less cautious about embracing the explanation than I expected. Down the hall, okay, so let me just get past that. There has been a chemical revolution going on starting from the beginning of the 19th century, maybe even a bit before, she told me, and upward and exploding after the Second World War, when hundreds of new chemicals came into the market within a short time frame. Suddenly, a vast array of chemicals were entering our bloodstreams that no human body had ever had to deal with. The chemical revolution gave us some wonderful things: new medicine, new food sources, fast and cheaper mass production, and all sorts of necessary products. It also gave us Anderson's point out, a living experiment on the human body with absolutely no forethought to the result. So she is saying the problem probably started as far back as World War II. I mean, that was the last time they had an explosion in birth. After that, it has gone downhill from there. When a chemical affects your hormone, it is called an endo, an endocrine disruptor. And it turns out that many of the compounds used to make plastics soft and flexible, or to make them harder and stronger, are consummate endocrine disruptors. Wow. So it's saying that when these BAPs get into the bloodstream, it's actually disrupting the estrogen and the testosterone. But I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. But all right. So if these compounds that are used in plastic are now impacting estrogen and sperm, I don't know. You got to think about the generations before, they really weren't dealing with a lot of plastics. You know, um, in the earlier centuries, everything was in glass. It was not a lot of products in plastic like there are today. I mean, it could be true. I'm just thinking because centuries ago, they were using cans, but it was not a lot of plastic being used. It was, even milk was always in glass, and a lot of your juice that was always in glass. But now, whenever you see any of these products in the store, it's mainly in plastic. So they actually may be onto something. But they turn to plastic because it's cheap. Everything's about money. They don't care about the impact that it's having on health. But, if this is indeed true, then they pretty much did this to themselves. But then again, you have to ask yourself, well, maybe because genetically we're not all the same. We're not. We may have a head, two arms, two legs, but we're not all the same. Because I mean, if that were the case, wouldn't everybody be impacted by the fact that we are using more plastic items? Why is it so different where some people are not reproducing and other people are fine using the same plastic products every day? I'm just saying. Okay. When the fetus testicles start making testosterone, which is about week 8 of the pregnancy, they make a little less, Swan said. That's the nub of the whole story. So it decreases in testosterone. Testicles then do not produce proper testosterone, and anogenital distance is shorter. The problem is that these chemicals are everywhere. BPA can be found in water bottles, food containers, and sale receipts. Wow, even the receipts we get? Yeah, because they're coded, aren't they? Yeah. Um, okay, I guess that's phthalates, 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 are even more important. They are in the coating of pills and nutritional supplements. They are used in gelling agents, lubricants, binders, emulsifying agents, and suspending agents. Not to mention medical devices, detergents, and packaging, paint, and modeling clay, pharmaceuticals and textiles, sex toys, and nail polish, and liquid soap and hairspray. They are used in tubing that process food, And you'll find them in milk, yogurt, sauces, soups, and even in small amounts of eggs, fruits, vegetables, pasta, noodles, rice, and water. The CDC determined that just about everyone in the United States has measurable levels. Okay, that is interesting. So it seems like everything, because of the chemicals that they're putting in everything, and all of these items are coated, and they're in so many products, they believe this is what's lowering the sperm count. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, I'm not saying that it's not possible, but I still say, why is this only impacting certain people and other people are using these products too? Hispanics and Black people are using a lot of these products too. Why is it not impacting them? Okay, what's more, there is evidence that the effects of these endocrine disruptors increases over generations due to something called epigenetic inheritance. Normally acquired traits like, say, a sperm count lowered by obesity aren't passed down from father to son, but some chemicals, including phthalates and BPA, can change the genes or express without altering the underlying genetic code, and that change is inheritable. Your father passed along his low sperm count to you, and your sperm count goes even lower after you're exposed to endocrine disruptors. That's part of the reason there's been no leveling off even after 40 years of declining sperm counts. The baseline keeps dropping. So they're saying every generation for the last 40 years have seen a drop in sperm count. This is wild. With all due respect to Dr. Swan and the problems of extrapolating beyond one's data, I wanted to get back to what it all means. The answer, I thought, might be found in the 13th International Symposium on Spermatology, which took place in May. Okay, on a small island in Stockholm. Okay, so let me just go down a little. It's really not important. Um, just go down. Dinner. Just okay. Okay. His session the next morning. Okay, so it would be defining event if the conference. Okay, so let me just go down. They're talking about things that really don't matter. Um, okay, I have great respect for epidemiological studies, but we should remember that mathematical correlations don't prove that there is a causative relation. He said, questions from the audience, often taking form of statements, which much along the same lines, be careful of a bias towards the assumption that all of these things are connected. Levine nodded with only a hint of chagrin, like a patient professor waiting, hopefully, for his students to catch up. David Morter, who company that designs and establish assisted conception laboratories, was one of the only members of the audience willing to question Levine's study itself. He pointed out that methods for measuring sperm had changed dramatically over time period of the study, and that the old studies were profoundly unreliable. Levine was ready with an answer. So that's one of the reasons we also conducted a sensitivity analysis, he said, from the stage, with studies with sample collections only after 1995. And the slope was even steeper. So he said they took sperm samples after 1995, and there was even less of a sperm count, and it was steep. So that could not explain the decline we see after 1995. I never said there was no decline in sperm count. Mortimer, a bit defensively. Levine, who had been so gracious and engaged with his critics, began to look a little tired. He rallied through when the group agreed to put out a joint statement about the crisis. The chair of the symposium called on the world to acknowledge that male reproductive health was essential for survival of the species, that its decline was alarming and should be studied, and that at uh, present it was being neglected in funding and attention. All right. So he agreed there was little question that sperm counts were dropping, and he even embraced that so he's pretty much agreeing, and there now, can anything be done? Over the past 20 years, there have been occasional attempts to limit the number of endocrine disruptors in circulation, but inevitably the fixes are insubstantial. One chemical removed in favor of another, which eventually turns out to have its own dangers. That was the case with BPA, which was partly replaced by bisphenol S, which might be even worse for you. The chemical industry, unsurprisingly, has been resistant to the notion that billions of dollars of revenue these products represent might also represent terrible damage to the human body, and have often followed the model of big tobacco and big oil, fighting regulation with lobbyists and funding their own studies that suggest the products are harmless. You know what? Let me tell you something. I have not, these folks are always lying. Everything they got out on this market, ladies and gentlemen, got some kind of issue with it. There's issues with the food, there's issues with the drinks, there's issue with the alcohol, there's issue with everything. And that is because they believe in adding things as if they're going to improve nature and what nature puts out. I haven't seen it yet. They don't do anything to food that makes it better. They actually make it worse. And that's why all this cancer is cropping up all over the place among the people. You know, when people were eating things in its more natural state, everybody was much healthier. But as soon as they went to all these product preservatives and these additives and all this other stuff added in, like they're making something better, they have never made it better. They haven't made anything better. They've made it worse. They made the quality of life for everybody on this planet worse by adding in all these chemicals and ingredients that were never necessary in the first place. Now, I know they're talking about, well, we're trying to give it a longer shelf life and all that stuff. Maybe it just wasn't meant to have a longer shelf life. Did that ever occur to you? Maybe these things shouldn't have a longer shelf life at all. I mean, look, the generations before you weren't complaining. Why are you complaining? And it's because it's all about money. And you can see they are willing to sacrifice people on this planet for money. And that's what's happening. There is a natural extinction going on, and people are being sacrificed. But see, ladies and gentlemen, they're mad at all of the wrong things. And the fact that they keep focusing on us and not their real problems, they're going to go extinct even quicker. Period. They are. So they're pretty much blaming everything on these plastic products and chemical compounds that are used in everything, on what's happening to the low sperm count that's going on this planet. All right, I'm going to go down a little further. Okay, so perhaps the solution, as long as we hover somewhere above sperm count zero, and with an assist from modern medicine, we have a shot. Men will continue to be essential to the survival of the species. The problem with the innovation, though, is that it never stops. New technology, known as IVG, in vitro gametogenesis, is showing early promise. Okay, and embryonic stem cells. Okay, they're talking all that stuff. And you know what else this means, ladies and gentlemen? These folks go around bragging about their medicine and technology. If your medicine and technology was so damn good, why are you going extinct? If your medicine and technology is so great and wonderful, then how come you are not solving your own problems with it? I mean, look, you're talking about four nations: the US, Europe, the whole continent of Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. And you all claim to be so advanced, have high IQs, and you are the inventor of medicine and technology, although history shows that you're not. But let's say it's true and you are. Then why aren't you using the technology and medicine to resolve your own problems? Why are you just sitting there going extinct with low birth rate, low sperm count, and the women unable to get pregnant and running into other countries trying to get other women to have their babies? What's wrong with your technology and medicine? That's the real question. What's wrong with it? Ladies and gentlemen, these people are not as advanced as they claim they are. They're not that advanced at all. People that are advanced would be surviving. People that are advanced would know how to solve their own problems. And it's very obvious. 4 decades have gone by and they are in a decline, and it's pretty bad. And these folks that are claiming to be so smart and their high IQs and so advanced, always remember they have a serious problem that they cannot resolve. And it's so bad that their own scientists are telling them they will become extinct. Only the strong species will survive. That's a fact. So, ladies and gentlemen, now that you have this information, please tell me what you think. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell. I will see you on the next video. Peace, family.